Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Ellensburg, Washington, USA. Happy solstice, winter solstice to you all. The local time is 7:49, I would say, a.m. Pacific time. This is a live broadcast, and today's date is December 21st of 2024. Looks like we're loud and clear, 5x5. I'm a little scattered this morning, I have to say. I just got in and I forgot to set up the iPad here, so I've got that going now. We've got more than 250 standing by. Always a pleasant surprise to see so many of you joining us for each of these live. Thank you. It's meaningful. Let me give you a shout out the window since it's the shortest day of the year light-wise. We're getting some light. The reflection off of the window not quite as severe as it was just a few minutes ago, so that's kind of nice. And here we are tucked inside, and I've got a few rock samples to share today. Today will be another unusual show, but I have plans. Daddy has plans. Where are you viewing from today? And of course, if you're watching this in replay, we will begin the program in 10 minutes or so. You'll look for a chapter title that says Program Begins. You can click right on that and away you go. But in this next 10 minutes, we're just getting warmed up, getting the mouth warmed up, saying hi to as many people as possible. Paul is in Browns Point, Washington, Marysville, Washington, San Diego, California. That's Oscar. Hello. Soldiers Grove, Wisconsin, Dorset, UK, Natchez, Washington, that's Pat the pilot. Anarica, pretty beautiful. Why, thank you. Webb Lake, Wisconsin, West Allis, Wisconsin. Oh, we got a lot of Badgers in the house. Lake Oswego, Oregon. Scrolling way too fast now. Saber is down in Baja. Hello, Saber. Hood River, Oregon. Freezing in Nashville, Tennessee. Yeah, it's freezing here too. 34 degrees Fahrenheit, no big deal. Tingley Park, Illinois. Oregon Central Coast. Keith's in South Africa. Hello, Keith. Welcome to North America, momentarily. Gig Harbor, Washington. Ian is deep in the Chuckanut, not the Swak. There is no Swak up on us here. Okay, good morning. Hello. Red Rock, New Mexico, Chehalis, Washington, Toledo, Ohio, Elko, Nevada, Byron, Wyoming, hello, Cynthia, The Dalles, Oregon, Edgewater, Florida. We got a different South African here? Or is that the same guy? Indiana, Redmond, Washington, Woodinville, Washington, Hillsboro, Illinois, lots of Midwestern folks, Boise, Idaho, Murfreesboro, Tennessee, El Cerrito, California, that's Chaya, Murfreesboro, Tennessee, Media, Pennsylvania, Fairbanks, Alaska, where it is 1 degree Fahrenheit, Don. Congratulations. I mean, we have light in our sky right now, Don. I'm sure. When does the sun come up? When is your official sunrise this morning, Don, in Fairbanks, Alaska? 10:30 a.m.? Is that how that works? Or even later? Yelm, Washington, in the Bald Hills. Jim is in Chico, California. John is in Troy, Michigan. Queen Anne, Seattle. Lindsay, Malone. Thank you, Lindsay, for your last-minute help last night. Petaluma, Chickentown, California. Escanaba, Michigan. That's Linda. Alex and Aaliyah from Grandview, Washington. Good morning. Is it foggy down there? Not bad out. Most of our snow is gone. Tasmania, hello. Yeah, do I have a story or anything for you? I guess I don't. The building's dead quiet, of course. So I'm just going to leave the door open today. I will say something. I've been noticing, and a few of you pointed it out, that the cam has been herky-jerky. And we'll see if that's the story again today. But I asked Nat a little bit about that, and he's like, well, is it herky-jerky in OBS? I'm like, no. He says, well, it must be a YouTube thing. And I'm like, well, I don't know. It never used to be herky-jerky. Like, this isn't herky-jerky, is it? If you don't know what I mean by herky-jerky, I guess, whatever. Jeff Taylor's in okay. Los Angeles, California, cracking myself up this morning. Belltown, Seattle. Puyallup, Washington. Central Lake, Michigan. Port Townsend, Washington. That's Carol. Hi, Carol. Carol and Jeff, as in Jeff Tepper. They are in Port Townsend this morning. Oh, we got Carol and Jeff's also going to be in the live chat. Both of you, battling geologists, correcting each other in the live chat. Carol says one thing, Jeff's like, actually, and Jeff says one thing, and Carol says, not quite. Nice try. Sherman, Texas. Olaf is from Bern, Switzerland. Greetings. What up, homie? What up, homie? My ancestors are from Elm in Canton Glarus. And there was a guy named Nick Zentner who left in 1864, and he made his way to Wisconsin and started the farm that I grew up on. And they all lived happily ever after. Dayton, Ohio. Bainbridge Island, Washington. Ottawa, Canada. Hello, Dennis. Kirk is in Philomath. Matt is chiming in from Camas, Washington. Collins in Los Angeles, California. Jocko Taco Morocco says, hey-o from Colorado. Gene Dorsey from Fort Atkinson, Wisconsin, my hometown. Port Angeles, Washington. I'm looking my age. Thank you. The hits keep on coming here. Okay, I got 5 minutes. I'm going to take a walk. I'll give you a shout out the window. Thank you so much for joining us today. A little geochemistry today. Come on now. A few vegetables with your breakfast. Very good. Thank you for being here. I mean it. Thank you for being here. We'll start the program in 5 minutes. Hot mic. Okay, you've been extra careful by laying out breadcrumbs, boy, in the slideshow. Just follow that. And most of those breadcrumbs are reminding you when to go to your drawings, right? So you don't even have to remember that. So you don't have to think much. You just have to just let it flow. The audience is on your side. You don't have to be super smooth and professional. If you forget something and then you remember it later on, you just go back to it. It's no big deal. Nobody paid anything to be here. You can lay an egg and it'd still be fine. But it always works. It always turns out. Remember that. You don't have to be all worked up. It always works out. Just let it go. Let it flow. Follow your nose. Even though you look your age. Take a walk. A pleasant good morning to you all, and welcome to this episode entitled More Breakoff Magmas, which implies that we have introduced Breakoff Magmas in an earlier episode. Is that true? Yeah, it's true. That was the last episode, like less than 2 days ago. Did you see it? Breakoff belt magmas, I'm afraid, is required viewing to make sense of this one. We're just going to pick up where we left off last time. And there's some good stuff here. I had no idea we'd be going this deeply into Breakoff Magmas, but there will be a payoff today. And by the end of today, you can see we're going to be dealing with some geochemistry. And Jeff Tepper has been holding my hand, recording. There's a video in the video library with Jeff Tepper helping me, coaching me up. We're literally drawing a diagram together. He's like, through Zoom, he's telling me how to draw a particular isotope plot, and it was instructive. So in addition to the little clips of that conversation with Jeff Tepper yesterday, which I will include in today's broadcast, there's a full 35 or 40-minute discussion between Jeff and I, getting ready for not only today, but I think the next episode as well. So this is a series. Let me say this quick before we move on today. I don't know if I've been this clear verbally about it, but allow me to say it, would you please? I think my strength is making a series of programs. And I think that's one of the main things that sets me apart from other people who are doing science videos, geology videos, but just science videos in general. It's one thing to have a topic and you make one video and it might be super glossy and sexy and everything, and there's a lot of people that enjoy it, and that's wonderful. There's a place for that, obviously. And I enjoy doing that too. But these alphabets, where there are 26 episodes all laid out and they all work together as a body, I don't see anybody else doing that, and it's fine, but I think of it as a class, and I like looking for narratives. And it's I'll say one more thing and then we'll get started today. It's a bit of a leap of faith. Okay, I'm going to say more than one thing. I have students sitting in this office regularly, and they are 19 years old, and they are interested in geology, and so they're in here, and that's the first step, and now we're having a discussion. You know, I'm 62. I look my age. I'm 62, and I'm talking to this 19-year-old, and they are clearly paralyzed because they cannot visualize their life when they're 20 or 30 or 40 or 50. And I think maybe in some cases their parents are actually saying, well, what is your job going to be? Where are you going to be living? What's the name of your pet? And who you're going to be living with? And how many children? And they're like, I don't want to screw this up. I can't picture what's going on. My point is, I agree to do an alphabet by picking a topic and then just betting on myself and betting on you and just assuming that it will all work out. In early November, when we started this series, did I know we were going to talk about spidergrams on the winter solstice? Hell no. But we're here. And things just kind of develop. And that's my message to the young people always. Are you open for opportunities? Are you open to just whatever comes your way and you just lean into things? And whether that's tips from you by email, now we're back to me again, tips from you by email, or getting the most out of conversations with guys like Jeff Tepper or others. I just got an email from Jamie McDonald 3 minutes ago, it looks like. It's a community, but you don't plot ahead with your set course. You work with whatever kind of shows up in front of you. And that's the student advice, and that's the advice, I guess, in general. Giving advice? Come on, man. Get over yourself. Hey, let's talk about today's episode. Let's go to Docky, and here we are on Saturday, December 21st, and we're not taking a break for Christmas. I've already talked about that. Our lives we're happy to be home now, and so we're just going to continue rolling. So the day after Christmas, we'll be back, and we will be continuing in blue. So the next time I see you will be Thursday, noon Pacific. And blue means we're in the 40s. We are firmly in the 40s now. We're firmly in the 40s. We as recently as last episode, we knew Silesia was important, and these break-off belt magmas would not be happening if it was not for Silesia, and we'll make that one-to-one correlation again today. But we're mostly done with orange, and we are in blue probably for a while, as I mentioned last time. I'm in no particular rush to get to green because we have Mike Tepper. No, we have Mike Eddy, and we have Jeff Tepper. But it's mostly Jeff Tepper, the mayor of Tepperland, who's with us today again in the live chat, as well as some other things. Okay, so my grand plan is to kind of work in that order. We'll start with some regional thoughts, look at a new way to see the cross-section of the breakout magmas and a map of the breakout magmas. I'm just going to basically take my red Sharpies and green Sharpies and just screw up diagrams we already have. I hope that doesn't bother you. Then we get to the crux of today, which is, how are we sure that some magmas in the Cascades are volcanic arc magmas? And how are we sure that some of those magmas, the Breakoff magmas, are truly Breakoff magmas and they are not tied to the subduction of the Farallon plate? They're tied to the breaking of the Farallon plate, but they're not tied to the subduction. They don't have a subduction signature. How are we sure about that? That's why we're drilling deep, more and more deeply into the geochemistry world and the igneous petrology world as well. Okay, I think we'll go right to the slides. Yeah. No, let's go nickzentner.com very quickly. And here we go again. There's another dozen papers. And you're like, I'm overwhelmed. Okay, that's fine. You're overwhelmed. But please be aware that each of these are not full papers. Half of them are posters. And they are posters from Jeff Tepper's students that have been working on the breakoff belt. And you're like, are you now recycling? Are you already out of material? Didn't we look at posters and abstracts last time? Yes, we did. Weren't those posters and abstracts last time from Jeff Tepper's students? Yes, they were. Aren't we just looking at those again? No. This is a whole new batch. So if you remember, in the last episode, we focused and just got introduced to 3 of the 10 breakoff magmas, the basalt of Summit Creek, the Teanaway Formation, and the Silver Pass Volcanics. And we just barely got into them, by the way. Well, here for episode G, which is today, we've got the Natchez Formation, the basalt of Frost Mountain, the Tainum andesite, and the Oso Volcanics. The only thing missing are the Barlow Pass Volcanics. And Jeff has mentioned that he knows the Barlow Pass Volcanics are part of the breakout belt, but he just hasn't gotten there, and maybe never will. I don't know. Gary Paul's got some photos of the Barlow Pass Volcanics for us today. But the point is, this looks overwhelming, but an abstract, as I mentioned verbally, but now I'm showing you, is just a couple of paragraphs from a presentation. But these are all Tepper's students, and Tepper will continue to work on publishing papers trying to summarize this. Finally, there's really one major paper today which is slightly different than the other Mike Eddy papers. So this is from a GSA meeting in Seattle in 2017. And the map that is here is a map from 2 years earlier that we've already not carefully, but just briefly looked at. But now here's another Mike Eddy colorblind map with details of local central Washington stuff. So I hereby declare that we're going to do one more Breakoff Magma episode, but it's going to be zeroed in on one of them, the Teanaway Formation. And I'm going to save some of that paper from Mike Eddy 2017. I'm going to save a bunch of gold and silver and blue agates and Teanaway feeder dikes and Straight Creek Fault restoration, and trying to lump the Teanaway with, is the Teanaway the same as the basalt of Summit Creek, and so on. I want to go there. I was going to cram it in to the end of today, but last night before I fell asleep, I'm like, no, I think that's worth a full episode, and maybe I can get a hold of Mike before Christmas and get him to do a 30-minute Zoom talk. I just emailed him. So we'll see if I can get a hold of him. Even if I can't, there's going to be plenty to work on. So one more Breakoff Belt Magma episode on the Teanaway basalt and the Teanaway rhyolite, and that's coming on Thursday, the day after Christmas. But you're like, I don't even know what we're talking about. Well, you didn't watch last episode, so I'm going to scold you about that. But beyond that, let me just remind you, if you can't remember, Thursday. Okay, it's tied to Siletzia. And one more time, we're talking about Siletzia. I watched the replay of last episode. I saw the live chat. I saw how many of you wanted to talk about rollback, how many of you wanted to talk about spreading ridge, how many of you wanted to talk about Yellowstone hotspot. My message to you is, number one, thank you for your enthusiasm. And number two, you got to be patient. There's a million things happening all at the same time, 51 to 48 million years ago. There's a million things. And I, as a teacher, am removing one element of the 7-ring circus and looking at it. And we will get to your thoughts. But please be patient. Please be patient. I appreciate your enthusiasm, but we can't do all of this at the same time or everybody's going to cry, including me. All right, so what are we focusing on? The accretion of Siletzia 51 million years ago, and we've already seen this a couple of times. We know then that the boundary between Siletzia after it got accreted, this is Washington, this is Oregon, Portland, Oregon is right in here. So Siletzia is a Western Washington and Western Oregon story. And this suture, this boundary between the accreted Siletzia and the older basement is important to us. And we know that that suture, which is right here at the surface, is not the same as where the breakout belt, the break-off magmas are coming up through. We're breaking off the Farallon plate and having it come through. And you're like, okay, is that what we were talking about? I guess I didn't quite get that before. Yeah, it is what we were talking about, but we have some beautiful custom drawings for us, and not just for us, for the plaque in the public square at Chimacum. Ken Clark, University of Puget Sound. You've seen this almost every episode now, so I'm going to go quickly. But 56, we build Siletzia. 51, we accrete Siletzia. And now we slow down because we're remembering that the break-off belt magmas, are not happening yet, but they're going to happen when we break the Farallon plate. And we're breaking, this is last episode, we break the Farallon plate because Siletzia is a big wad of basalt, that's an understatement, that is clogging the trench. It's choking the system. And so we break the Farallon plate off. This is the tectonic interpretation. And faintly here in pink are the break-off belt magmas. And we have them in Washington. I don't think we have them in Oregon, except possibly the Killarney. This is the map that we keep coming back to and will again today. Here's the surface suture of Siletzia. Here are the magmas, the break-off belt magmas. Oso-volcanics, there's their age. Mount Pilchuck Stock, Bald Mountain batholith, Barlow Pass volcanics, Teanaway basalt, Natchez Formation, Silver Pass volcanics, basalt of Frost Mountain, and down here in the south at White Pass, near the Ugly Russell Ranch, is the basalt of Summit Creek. And we can squeeze in the Tainamanasite here as well, if you like. It's this correlation, it's this parallel, this rough parallel agreement between the trend of the suture and the trend of the breakoff belt that is exciting Jeff Tepper and his students. So I used the red and the green, still kind of recapping and getting the blood pumping here this morning. We break the plate, we have the breakoff belt here. Green is the actual suture. The red and the green lines are not in the same place because there's an angle to this cramming of the Siletzia story underneath the edge of North America. Okay, those are my notes to myself. So I want to go back and forth between slides and hand-drawn sketches. Let's try it. I say, let's try it. Okay, let's start here. So I saw that Honey Greg was bothered that he couldn't tell where he was. Okay, fair point. So here's Wenatchee, Ellensburg, Seattle, and Olympia, all cities in Washington. Of course, this is the biggest and the best, Ellensburg. Har har. And now here's our Breakoff Belt Magmas. So, each time I'm driving between Ellensburg and Seattle over the pass, I'm going through the Breakoff Belt Magmas. And a big message to me and maybe most of you, courtesy of Lindsay Malone, is that many of the familiar peaks in the Snoqualmie Pass area are Natchez Formation. That's coming in a second, but let's pause and absorb that. It's embarrassment time. I started here in 1992. It is no longer the early 90s. And last night is the first time I realized that some of the mountain peaks in the Snoqualmie Pass area are made of something called the Natchez Formation. Breakoff Belt Magmas. I had no idea. I mean, how many times have I crossed the pass in a motor vehicle? 500 times? 500 times in the last month? By the way, I'll say it. Why not? I don't know if Adele is here. Have you watched these regularly? There's a woman in the live chat named Adele, and I always say, she says, Adele in Disco Park. And I say, hello, Adele from Disco Park. Well, when Liz was in the hospital in Seattle for a straight month, was I going back and forth between Ellensburg and Harborview Medical Center in downtown Seattle every day? No, I was not. Adele in Seattle and her husband John offered dinner every night and a bedroom in their home. So I spent a month at their house. Yet another reason that this community is amazing. Okay, all right, Seattle, good. All right, so you remember back in Orange time, we have our sluggish rivers at Squawk time, and by the time we bring in Siletzia, what really is that? Well, there's our suture in green, and now we realize that our Breakoff Belt Magmas, why wouldn't those be coming up through the Squawk? Now that we know what the Squawk Formation is, a bunch of Arcosic sandstone and black shales with the palm fronds in them, why wouldn't our Breakoff Magmas intersect that world? Like in the middle of this tranquil swamp, the first major thing to happen is this outbreak of magmas, and you're like, why there? Because beneath there is the break of the plate. And you're like, I don't see why that's important. Well, you're going to have to wait on that. But it is important for a number of reasons that will be clear not only later today, but beyond that. So that's kind of a fun thought, in my opinion. And please remember that we are not to 46, we're in blue time, but we're not in 46 million year blue time. And so we're not ready to start our volcanic arc quite yet. But if I feel like just going crazy with the markers, why not? Let's do it again. And now we're realizing, I'm going to dash it. Now we're realizing that the Breakoff Belt is on display in Washington because of the uplift and erosion of the overlying rocks. Remember, we're talking about a story from older than 48 million years ago. And yet those Breakoff Magmas are at the surface. Not so lucky down in Oregon. As Tepper says in the live chat from last episode, that they're probably there. Again, you accrete Siletzia, you're going to get the Breakoff Magmas, but they're buried by a bunch younger stuff, except possibly the Clarno. Maybe we can get to the point where we can really get that straight in our heads. We know this is what got us into this world, and we're talking about a bunch of these Breakoff Magmas between younger than the accretion of Siletzia and older than the birth of the Cascades. Obviously, I'm just clearing out a closet here full of stuff. I think I want to do this in cross-section. Now, in the other cartoons, we know this isn't perfectly vertical, but I guess I drew it vertically in this sketch, so I'll go ahead. Breakoff Magmas. Siletzia suture. So one of the things I'm trying to establish here is I'm setting up the next episode. I'm going to actively wonder with Mike Eddy, can we correlate some of these Breakoff belt magmas with other Breakoff belt magmas? Are they all the same thing? We got 10 different names, but do we need 10 different names? Is the basalt of Summit Creek the same as the Teanaway basalt, the same as the stuff in the basalt of Frost Mountain or whatever? Like Mike was doing that. I thought it was a great idea that I had personally. Then I started reading that 2017 paper by Mr. Precise, Mike Eddy, and he was at it. He's already worked on it. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm trying to give us more thoughts about the Breakoff magmas, but it's what are the Breakoff magmas coming up through? And ultimately, this will help with the Goat Rocks project, I think. I don't know. Do I want to screw this one up? Why not? Why not? Remember, this was one of the first maps we drew. And there's our suture. And so the Breakoff magmas down by the Goat Rocks project, the basalt of Summit Creek, I mean, we're right in the neighborhood here. And are there a couple other Breakoff belt magmas that are south of the Goat Rocks, south of the Rimrock Lake Inliner? Probably. I'm having fun. I hope you are too. Early on a winter solstice morning. It's getting pretty bright out there now. Still dark up in Fairbanks, I'm guessing. Let's try one more map, and this is going to introduce something else. I'm now setting up 2 or even 3 letters from now. Same color scheme. What looks familiar? Siletzia, Siletzia suture. And we just did this 4 times. I'm doing it a 5th time. The red line is the Breakoff belt, and we're making them dashed as they go down through Oregon. But the purpose of this map is that this is not the entire west coast of North America. We don't have Siletzia going up to we don't have Siletzia covering this entire map. There is a north edge and a south edge to Siletzia, which means, students, that we have an abrupt north end and abrupt south end of the Breakoff belt, which means there's a coherent story. And for the beginners, I'm just going to be coy about what this might be. I'm just drawing 2 big fat black lines saying that there's a northern edge and a southern edge to this Siletzia story and therefore to the Breakoff belt magma story. But I'm telling you, next weekend and into the new year, we're going to be back in here. Still with Tepper, but another portion of Tepper's work. That's all I want to do there. Okay, that was plenty of Sharpie sketches. Let's go back to the slides and see where we go now. Yeah, I just did that. Map with tears. Just kidding. Map with tears. Those black lines are potential tears of an underlying oceanic plate. Our first of many clips of the Jeff Tepper conversation yesterday morning.
You've labeled Breakoff belt.
Yeah.
Is shifted to the east from Siletzia.
Right.
And so I would say, in my way of defining things, the line at the eastern edge of, that line is both the Breakoff belt and maybe the limit of Siletzia in the subsurface. So
in the
so remember, Siletzia was jammed under the edge of the continent
Right.
So I would make a distinction. I would call the green line you just drew, that to me is the suture, because
Yeah.
that's what you might see at the surface, although it's not very well exposed. But the suture and the easternmost extent in the subsurface to me aren't the same thing.
Okay. This episode brought to you by Hotel Murano in beautiful downtown Tacoma. You've got to love it. Okay. You getting sick of it now? I don't know. I just want to make sure we get as many of us together and locked into the Breakoff geometry, because you know what's coming. You know what's coming. Detailed geochemistry, which scares the hell out of me. But I think I know just enough to make it work for you. Plus, we have an insurance policy. Jeff Tepper in the live chat, eating a cinnamon bun. Yeah, we got it. Okay. So, programming note, I did this last time. But again, I want to lay out the next few letters to you. And you're like, chapters? I don't get it. As I mentioned last time, I'm seeing natural chapters developing. And each chapter in our book that we are writing together on the Cascades, each chapter is its own unit in the book. And who says the chapters have to be the same length? So we did 2 letters on chapter 2 in the alphabet. We're going to do, I guess, 3 letters on the Breakoff belt magmas, blue, Jeff Tepper. But this is what I think we're heading toward. 2 more chapters with Tepper. And some of you know about the slab rollback, and some of you know about the initiation of the Cascades. And again, you're wanting to cram everything into today's discussion or last discussion. I'm asking you to be patient, and now I'm showing you why you can be patient, because we will eventually be expanding on this area. And there's videos on every one of these things that I can show. I don't think we have any field videos today. Good. Okay. So I think now I would like to visually give you a quick tour of a few of the key places, courtesy of some talented community members here who are also backcountry people. And so we're not going to be exhaustive with our study of each of these Breakoff magmas. That's my choice. Please remember that almost every one of these Breakoff magmas has an abstract and a poster for you to look at. Like if you love the Bald Mountain Pluton, you know everything you can learn. That's where you live and you hike and you whatever. I'm giving you some information, but I'm not covering it verbally. I thought maybe I was at one point, but then I got into the posters themselves, and the posters are very good, and they have the plots we're going to talk about in a second. But quite often the posters are like, well, it's not cut and dried. Here, the Barlow Pass Volcanics has a couple of votes for Breakoff, and there's also a signature that's maybe not Breakoff. It's maybe more arc or early arc or something. I just decided to let that student work speak for itself. It's impressive, University of Puget Sound. But this is kind of a do-it-yourself thing at some point. I'm setting you up to do your own work, essentially. But I still want to tap into what some of these places look like, especially for those who have never been in Western Washington. So, Gary Paul, who is currently in Hawaii, on the island of Kauai, until Christmas Day, it sounds like. So I asked Gary for some photos. He's like, sorry, man, I'm in Hawaii. I'm not at my computer. But I do have some photos from Gary. And so Gary has been invaluable for many, many reasons, and he will continue to be a resource for us this winter when he's back from Paradise. So Gary has a few photos from the Barlow Pass Volcanics, which again is the only one of these Breakoff belt magmas that we do not have spidergrams. We do not have AFM plots and everything else. So here's Gary with his patented yellow labels. Kai's Peak, We haven't gotten to red yet. We haven't gotten to the Fife's Peak. And Gary's unfamiliar, not sure what this contact is. Is it a fault or what is it? But here are some photos of Breakoff Magmas. We're in the Cascades. We have volcanic rocks. They're not the Cascade Volcanic Arc. Why did I show this? Just reminding you, Barlow Pass volcanics are one of them. Okay, good. Other artsy shots from Gary. A volcanic tuff near Independence Lake. No idea. Barlow Pass volcanics. More Barlow Pass volcanics. Fine-grained rhyolite tuff. Maybe it's the same unit. Jeff, you can comment in the live chat, but I'm guessing you didn't do Barlow Pass because it wasn't easy to get to. You got to be Gary, get on the trail, and get yourself up into this high country. Although that reminds me, I think up until this point, Gary Paul, U.S. Forest Service, retired, and Jeff Tepper, University of Puget Sound, geology professor, retired. Up until this fall, those two guys I don't think have interacted much. But Tepper saw Gary in that flying video over Glacier Peak, rattling off all these peaks, and not only rattling off the peaks, but rattling off the geology as well. And I know that Tepper reached out directly to Gary and said, hey, we need to collaborate on something. You know, you have all these inside scoop on all these backcountry places. And so there might be some, I don't know, something where those two guys are getting together and maybe involving somebody else geology-wise. So that's a fun connection that may be bearing fruit at some point down the road. One more shot. This must all be from the Independence Lake area in the high country. Photos from Gary Paul. Okay, and then last night, so I said, wow, I got all these Gary photos, but I don't think I have any other Breakoff Belt magmas that I can find easily. And Gary's in Hawaii, so he can't send me more. So I think it was yesterday, Friday, at like noon or something. And I said, Lindsay, I know you do some hiking up in the backcountry of the Cascades, and I've seen on Facebook you post a few things involving some of these geology units. It's a last-minute request, Lindsay, but would you have any time Friday afternoon or even Friday night to grab a few photos and send them to me? And she did. I got an email last night approaching 6:30. Apologies for the delay. You don't need to apologize, Lindsay. It was a last-minute request. So Lindsay sent me some photos from 4 of the Breakoff Belt magmas. And I'm going to highlight 3 of them: Bald Mountain, Silver Pass, and Natchez. I just wanted to give you more, viewer, I wanted to give you more beautiful photos to go with this area, because we're not talking about Kansas, no offense. We're talking about beautiful areas where these rocks are on display. And I want to keep coming back to this email because Lindsay does a nice job just summarizing. So the Bald Mountain Batholith, I don't think I've ever been. I think I flew over it with Gary and Pat the pilot. The summit of Bald Mountain is granitic just to the north of the peak, and on the trail to the summit, one crosses into the Grello, the Western Melange Belt. Thank you. So let's go to the Bald Mountain Batholith right here. And here are just a few of the many photos that Lindsay sent to me last night. It's so easy. You just drop them into Keynote, sitting in front of the fireplace with Bijou in my lap and a cup of hot water with some honey in it. Perfect. My idea of a good time. Now there's a Pluton. This is new to us. Most of these Breakoff magmas have been lavas, but there's a few magma chamber rocks, including the Bald Mountain Pluton, that has the geochemistry to say Breakoff and not arc. Quake Cat UT says Kansas has some fascinating geology. Okay, I do apologize. This ain't Kansas. Come on, man. Breakoff magma. Uh-oh. Same photo. Pica. Meep, 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 meep. On top of Breakoff magma. And you're like, oh, that's so cute. Now, are you sure that's not an arc magma? That's where we're going. Up without Tepper's help yesterday, I would have gone, I guess. I don't know. It's a granite in the Cascades. How do we know that granite is from the Breakoff and not from a subducting oceanic plate? And you can say the age. Oh, that granite is 50 million years old. It's too old for the start of the Cascades, but that's an arbitrary number that comes out of thin air according to this paper by Jeff Tepper. So, like, can we be sure? We can be sure if we are willing to eat our vegetables and do a little geochemistry. That's coming. Meep, meep, meep. Silver Pass volcanics. This area, known geographically as the French Cabin Ridge, and the names of the peaks sort of fit that theme. So now we're closer to Easton, Washington, very close to Interstate 90, which, remember, is the boundary between the North Cascades and the South Cascades. And so here's, I've never been up there. It's embarrassing. This is like, the trailhead's like a half an hour from my house. French Cabin Mountain, Silver Pass volcanics. And this is up at this, literally the place called Silver Pass. That looks like Stewart in the Stewart Range. Part of the mega whale. JK. Lindsay and her partner getting out and enjoying these beautiful places. And when I see photos like this, I go, wow, amazing, beautiful. Thank you for the gifts and the generosity. And I also think, good God, why haven't Liz and I been up there? This could easily be a day hike for us. We're just ignorant. But part of the message is that these rocks look weird. I shouldn't say that, because I suppose the arc magmas look similar to this. I'll back off of that. But Lindsay has an eye for geology. Whether she has a formal interest in it or not, I'm unclear, but she always seems to be interested in the geology. Yeah, nice. Finally, a few more from Lindsay last night, the Natchez Formation. And here's the part that got me very interested. She's asking me, did you know that when you're skiing at Snoqualmie Pass and you look north across I-90 to the peaks across the way, that those mountains, including Kendall and Rampart Ridge, are part of the Natchez Formation in the Breakoff Belt? Did I know that, Lindsay? No, I didn't. And I teach geology at Central Washington University. That's embarrassing, but also exciting, because I can take places like these and now realize a very specific tectonic story that I did not have before. So to the Natchez Formation we go. I mean, how many times have I heard people talk or see stuff in a report on the Natchez Formation? I'm like, God, one of these days I got to figure out where that is. It's freaking at Snoqualmie Pass. It's there. Unbelievable. I mean, come on, this is a photo in the Cascades. It's a photo in the Cascades. This is a classic Cascades photo. And yet those lavas are not classic Cascade volcanic arc lavas. I hope you can see from photos like this why this Breakoff Magma 2-episode or 3-episode set is worth our time. And by the way, 20 years ago, everybody assumed they were Cascade volcanic arc magmas. They're in the Cascades. But as we're going to hear from Tepper, from chat yesterday, he's like, they didn't have the analytical ability to look at the elements we're going to look at today, and they didn't have the precision dating-wise either. 20 years ago. Not 100 years ago, like 20 years ago. So, Lindsay, thank you so much for these photographs. I see Lindsay is still in the live chat. Nice. And we have approaching 900 people watching live on a Saturday morning. Cool shot. The Silver Pass volcanics, not far from Interstate 90. Maybe you hear, Lindsay, do you hear the rumble of the freeway when you're up there? Are you that close? Like, I'm always distracted by that when I'm hiking it. If I go up to the Kendall Catwalk or if I go up French Cabin Mountain either, I'm aware of the freeway. Oh, another one. Oh, meep, 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 meep. Good. Okay. Setting the hook for next time, Mike Eddy, 2017. We were just looking at the Natchez. We're going to look in a major way at the Teanaway. Mike is already saying, boom, 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 boom. Is it all the same stuff? And can we keep booming down to the basalt of Summit Creek? Yay or nay? I want to look at that more carefully. And I've got a few days between now and Thursday, so I'm going to have a good old time doing that. Okay, we are starting to dive. Are you with me? You want to hold my hand? Because I've already been holding Tepper's hand. Now you want to hold my hand too? It's not that bad. You're like, what is this all about? Well, geochemistry is hard. And geochemistry is often taught, or just chemistry in general, but geochemistry in particular is often taught from my point of view. I may be wrong, but I don't know what your impression is. My impression is chemistry is taught in a vacuum. There's rarely applications to this. And you're like, what, aren't you strong? You're talking to me now. Aren't you strong in chemistry? Isn't everybody required to take 2 college-level chemistry classes? And the answer is yes. Did I take Chemistry 1 and Chemistry 2 at the college level? Sure I did. When Ronald Reagan was president in 1983. And, okay, quick story time, and then we'll go to the geochemistry. It's like, I guess I am stalling. When I got a master's degree from Idaho State University and I did a structural geology thesis with Dave Rogers, I didn't know what I was going to do. I was probably going to go work in the gold fields with all of my classmates. They were making a lot of money for Elko, at Elko, Nevada, working for Newmont or some of these other, Round Mountain and some of these other things. It just didn't sound fun to me. And I got a chance to teach a brand new teaching position, a lecturer position in Oxford, Ohio, Miami of Ohio. I've told this a number of times, and that's where I learned how to teach, basically. I taught every morning. That's where I was working with Marcia Bionrud, if you saw that video. Well, one of the colleagues of Marcia, and a guy that I became buddies with, was a guy named Bill Hart, William Hart. And he was an igneous petrologist. And we were collaborating on making some new diagrams for a Geology of National Parks class, I remember, and it was fun to work with Bill. And Bill at some point said, well, are you going to go get a PhD? I'm like, I don't think so. I'm just not. I like teaching. I really like this new gig. I think I want to just keep teaching. He's like, oh, it's going to be tough to have a full career just with a master's degree at a university. I'm like, I know, but I think I can do it. Maybe I can market myself to somebody that it'd be worth hiring me full time and keeping me. And Bill said, well, why don't you at least think about getting a PhD? And I'm like, where would I go do that? And he said, you could do it here. I could be your PhD advisor. And why don't you sit in on my isotope geochemistry class at 7:30 every morning before you teach your geology classes and get yourself up to speed, because you say you're weak in chemistry. Let me get you up to speed. And he was a guy that was doing all sorts of igneous petrology research in the Pacific Northwest, mostly basalts. Jordan Valley, I remember, on the Idaho-Oregon line. And that was tough going. And I'm not even sure I made it through that semester. And I just said, Bill, I appreciate the offer, but I can't get into this stuff. I don't get it. I'm not excited about it. He's like, okay. He didn't even try to convince me. He's like, okay, yeah, you are kind of dumb. So here I am now with a guy like Jeff Tepper, and Bill Hart was an excellent professor too. But we're going to try it now with Tepper. Okay, so setting the hook, please remember, this is what we're up to. What is the difference between magmas generated breakoff older than 48 million years ago, which is a short-lived window in time, by the way. This window of time when we're actually developing these breakoff magmas is just a 3 million year run. And I hope you can see how this is a different photograph. And this is a different way to generate magmas. We're looking for a subduction signature. I like that phrase. I don't know if Jordan said it. I just read Jordan Valley. I don't know if Tepper said that yesterday or not. He probably did. But these magmas here have a subduction signature, an arc magma. An arc is a line. It's a line of stratovolcanoes. The stratovolcanoes are built by arc magmas, magmas that have a subduction signature. And we're going to get to a clip where Tepper is going back and forth between these two pictures. And I think we've got it right now. Oh, we don't? Okay, I'm going to do it. Where is it then? Here, let's show it to you. And times here. What would you add to this cartoonish view? Is this truly decompression melting? Is that the right phrase to work with? Okay, so this is solid mantle that's losing pressure, so it's becoming solid and becoming liquid. That's the only major change, just the pressure as it rises.
So that's hot mantle coming from below the slab,
which is solid mantle,
which is all solid.
Yeah.
So that's called the asthenosphere, the part of the mantle that's below the plate. And if you bring that to the surface, it will spontaneously melt because of a decrease in pressure.
Decrease in pressure. Good. And I just stole this from Ken's cartoon saying water vapor. That must have been you. So am I correct at the most basic level that we have water inside of this downgoing slab? The water's being forced out of the downgoing slab.
Right.
And we're adding water to the base of the crust. We add water, that lowers the melting temperature. We create melts.
Right, although you're actually adding it to the mantle. The piece of mantle that's called the wedge. That's the mantle wedge, right? So it's above the plate and below the continent, right there where they're coming together, that triangular shaped piece of real estate.
Yeah.
Is the mantle wedge. And you're adding water to that.
Yeah.
From the slab, and that triggers melting of the wedge, which produces basalt, and then basalt goes up into the crust. So those are the two fundamental ways on Earth that melting in the mantle takes place, either by decompression or by adding water.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, so I'm taking extra care to try to make sure that all of us can see why we're doing the geochemistry. We're towards the end of today's program. But there's a fair amount of meat on this bone. I'm going to try one more time to make sure we know the difference. I did this, and that's what you were just looking at, to try to set up why we care. I'm going to say it one more time. I don't know if I need to, but I'm doing this. Breakoff versus arc. Breakoff versus arc. I think you've got it, but I'm not going to do it again. You know what we're talking about. Okay, so there's 4 ways we're going to make this call. You've got a lava in the Cascades. We're going to study the hell out of it geochemically, and we're going to do 4 things. We're going to say, is it bimodal or not? I need to explain. Can we do a spidergram plot? I'll need to explain. Can we do an AFM plot? I'll need to explain. And can we do an isotope diagram? I'll need to explain. And you know when I say I'll need to explain, I'll need to relay what Jeff Tepper coached me up on yesterday. Okay? It's 4 things. Let's start with the bimodal story. Okay, so this is a quick thing that I am comfortable teaching. Geology 101, essentially. So here's an igneous rock classification chart. Go quick, boy, go quick. These are 8 igneous rock names. You've heard basalt, you've heard diorite, you've heard granite, you've heard rhyolite, you've heard andesite. You maybe haven't heard gabbro. Even few of you maybe have heard dacite and tonalite. But this is the organization. The top 4 are volcanic rocks, meaning they form when you take magma and erupt it out of a volcano and you cool it quickly on the surface of the earth. These are magma chamber rocks. They're plutonic. That's why we call plutons, right? Plutonic igneous rocks cool slowly in the dark in a magma chamber, and they have bigger crystals: gabbro, diorite, tonalite, granite. The basalt and gabbro have the same minerals. Dacite and tonalite have the same minerals. Rhyolite and granite have the same minerals. Same minerals made out of the same elements. The only difference is the size of the minerals. The minerals are tiny in volcanic rocks. The minerals are nice and big in plutonic rocks. But these 8 boxes are organized by overall rock color. So the rocks are black over here with basalt and gabbro. So basalt and gabbro are composed of black-colored minerals. But as you work your way to the right in the chart, you get less and less black minerals and more light-colored rocks. Now, I'm not saying white. Could be pink, could be green, but the idea is we're getting less and less black minerals as we go to the right. That's because there's an overall chemistry difference. And if we look at the silica content, the amount of silicon and oxygen in the magmas, these are the rock bottom values. That was pun intended, by the way. These are rock bottom values. You have magmas that have only 45% silica. They are considered mafic magmas, and they're typically found in the oceans. And as you work your way to the right, you pick up silica. So maybe the andesite and diorites have, what do you want, 60% silica? Maybe this is like 68% silica, and here, by the time we get here, this is the high value, full 75% silica, and those are felsic rocks. These are intermediate rocks in between. So there's a global pattern where these are typically oceanic rocks and these are typically continental rocks. But I've been told by people like Jeff Tepper that all four of these are possible in the Cascades. B, A, D, R. All 4 of those lavas are possible and common in the Cascades with a volcanic arc setting. But here's the point. One way to distinguish between break-off and arc is looking at the chemistries of the magmas. Volcanic arc, all 4 of these are common. Breakoff belt, these and these. Or I should cover up these guys. So bimodal volcanism means that the basalts and the rhyolites are being produced in the breakout magmas. In that breakout belt, we're getting basalts and rhyolites. We're getting gabbros and granites. We are not getting the middle parts of this chart. So bi means 2, mode means type, 2 opposite types of lavas in the system. And to be thorough, if you like, here's what a basalt lava looks like. I've already showed it to you. It's iron rich. It's down here. The opposite, here's what a rhyolite looks like. This is the Bishop Tuff from California. It's over here. This is also a rock that has very little black mineral content. I mean, I know these look dark, but this is also a felsic rock. Where'd this come from, and what is this? This is a vitrophyre from the base of an ash flow tuff in the Teanaway. Are you intrigued about next Thursday, about the next episode? Why do we have a vitrophyre of felsic material in the Teanaway? You're like, why is that such a big deal? I thought they're supposed to be bimodal. Yeah, they are. They are. And the Teanaway Formation on Thursday will be basaltic and rhyolites. Basalts and rhyolites. Yeah, but the fact that we've had some people in our geology department go up and find some of this Teanaway rhyolite, and more than that, find the basal vitrophyre, that's new information. It's pretty exciting. You want some more looks at rhyolites? You want another look at a basalt? This is literally the Teanaway basalt, TTB. So again, I'm giving away the good stuff for Thursday, but I'll have these samples again. And then one sample to just show you what middle of the road looks like. I don't even know if this is an andesite or a dacite. I'm sure the know-it-alls in the live chat will tell me. But it's intermediate, I think. There's some hornblends in there. Okay. So, igneous rocks. They're fun. I want to collect some. I want to bring them back and put them in my front yard. That's good. That's good. That's one use for them. Oh, it's windy here in Ellensburg. I need some paperweights. Very good. Get some rocks. But I like these rocks. I like any rocks, not because I want to collect them. I know that's weird. People never believe me when I say that. They're like, well, I got some rocks in my coffee can. I'm sure you've got tons of coffee cans. I'm like, no. They're like, you don't? I'm like, no, I'm not a collector. Our geology building's full of rocks. There's no problem there. I like the rocks because of the stories, and the stories that I'm most excited about are specific plate tectonic stories, and that's what we're doing here today. We know our two pictures. We know our arc versus Breakoff pictures. And we're getting to this point now where we can tell a story about these rocks in the Teanaway were from a Breakoff of the Farallon plate. That is so frickin' cool. Where are we? Over 900 now. Okay. Okay. We're to isotopes now. We're to elements now. We're to plots of elements and trace elements in these rocks. Sorry, while I'm cleaning up my mess. Getting a workout. Jazzercise. Docky. So you have this letter. And it's more than a letter asking how I'm doing and talking about the weather. This is a letter from Jeff Tepper to moi, that's French. And this letter is rich in detail. We've already looked at it a little bit in the last episode, but now we're down to these spidergram plots. And I've got a video clip of Jeff coaching me up, but I'm literally doing this with the document camera in the video. Let's do that first. Let's have Jeff give us some background for the basics of this plot and then why it's such a crucial way to plot things with all of his students. Every student poster has a spidergram on it. Two guys.
Okay. Can I give a little background
Please
to this
do.
diagram?
Yes.
All right. So all the things we're going to talk about this morning are based on chemical analysis of a rock, knowing what elements are in it.
Good.
And so this diagram is using elements that are not very abundant, trace elements. And so there are a bunch of different elements across the bottom. And the takeaway here is going to be that this is a tool for just establishing what tectonic setting a magma forms in. And by tectonic setting, we mean, is it an arc? Is it a hot spot? Is it a mid-ocean ridge?
Thank you.
And so you take the element abundances in your sample and you divide them by the average abundance of those elements in a mid-ocean ridge basalt.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Okay, so that's what on the side there where it says sample over morb. Morb is short for mid-ocean ridge basalt.
Good.
So if you took an average, if you took a mid-ocean ridge basalt and divided it by itself,
right,
you'd get a horizontal flat line on this diagram.
Yeah, I'm with you.
However, if you take a sample from an arc, a subduction-related rock, you get a different pattern, and you get the pattern that's shown here. And the two notable features are that there's a hump at rubidium, barium, and thorium.
Yeah.
And there's a valley or a depletion at tantalum and niobium.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just true of all arc rocks. you would like me to make an absolute statement? That's as close as I'm going to get is
I
all
love
arc
it.
rocks. Okay, so it's makes me nervous to say all, but it's pretty
I know.
widespread. Okay,
And,
so
and we're in the Cascades, and so the Cascade arcs, we're not talking worldwide now, but the Cascade arc rocks typically have this pattern. So
right.
most of the take your favorite Pluton that's younger than 46 million years, or the andesites in Mount Rainier National Park. They
They have
probably have
all,
this
yep.
signature.
And in
Good,
every arc worldwide, this is not special for the Cascades.
good, okay,
Okay, so this thing is called a spider diagram or a
yeah,
spidergram,
okay,
and our goal is simply to collect a sample. Each line on that diagram was a different sample. So when you use this, you have to have all those different elements as part of your analysis. And that was what was lacking from a lot of the early work done in the Cascades is they didn't measure these elements.
right.
So we couldn't make this kind of diagram.
Too bad.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can I give a little back?
Sorry, Patrick. Thank you, Jeff, for that. I've got an idea. So Jeff is telling us, here's what I think Jeff is telling us, and my idea is to go to a couple of student posters right now. So Jeff is telling us that this is the look of a spidergram that tells us that a volcanic arc, in other words, younger than 46 million years ago, this is proof that we have a subduction signature for a magma, for a lava, for a Pluton. I mean, the Tatoosh Pluton, the Bumping Lake Pluton, the Bumping River Tuff, the Granite Falls Pluton. All these things that are subduction signature rocks are going to have a plot like this. But my idea is to go right now to the website and look at a couple of student posters. And are the student posters going to have a plot that looks like that? Yes or no? I'll wait. My question is, we're about to go to the student posters that are for today and last episode, and are those spidergrams from the student posters going to look like this? Are they going to have a hump at these three elements and a little valley at tantalum and niobium? Yes or no? I see a yes. I'll wait for a couple more seconds. There's a delay in the comments. In fact, I'll hustle while we are waiting. I'm going to a couple of student posters. My question is, are we going to have a hump and a valley like we just saw at a few of these posters? I'm seeing mostly no's, and that's the point. I'm going to see no's. Why? Because these are Breakoff posters. These are magmas of Breakoff belt, and the whole point is we're going to have a different look. So don't be embarrassed if you said yes. It's okay. I make plenty of mistakes every moment of every day. Thank you for playing. So let's see if I'm right. Let's go to, I forget which is a really great signature, but let's just play the odds here. Frost Mountain. So this is John Randall, and John Randall has a plot for us. Here's the spidergram for the basalt of Frost Mountain. Oh, cripes. Jeff, we've got the hump. Okay, is this a bad example? The key question is, will do some samples correct, right, okay. So it's the tantalum. No. It's the TA and the NB that we're really looking at, according to Jeff Tepper in the live chat right now. We don't care about this hump. We care about what this looks like. Is it a big valley, or is there not much of a valley at all? I think that's what you're saying right now, Jeff. Let's try a couple more. This could backfire. Might have to get you on the phone. Yeah, typical in an arc setting. Is this the Tainum? Oh, cripes. All right. I gambled and maybe I've lost here. I don't know. Look at the blue line. Yes, hump is okay. That shows up in the hot spots too. I'm going to slow down and look at this one. I'm going to wait for your comment on this one, Jeff. This is the Oso Volcanics. Okay, we are live. Why are we pointing out that there's a depletion? Isn't that an arc signature? These are the Oso Volcanics. They're supposed to be Breakoff. Relation of the andesites is unclear. Okay. All right. I'm going to do one more. Let me go back to the last episode. Summit Creek's pretty well behaved, right? Summit Creek, do we have a Summit Creek poster? No. Is there a Summit Creek? Is there a spidergram in this plot? In this paper? Yes. Okay, Jeff Tepper is choking on his cinnamon bun right now. Like, you're screwing up the whole thing. Yeah, I guess there's not a big valley here. So I'm just going to take this and run with it. Okay. Okay, all right. So let me. Okay, total experiment, obviously. Just improv time forever. And Jeff Tepper in the live chat says, okay, you kind of blew it because you went to the Teanum and you went to the Oso, and they were looking more arc-like. It's that thing where we're putting things in the Breakoff belt, and it's a nice-looking map, but it's not that cut and dried. There's a little bit of votes for either arc or Breakoff with a couple of these units. And then Jeff is, I'm translating if you can't see the live chat. Jeff says, okay, finally, boy, you got it. You went to a good unit, a good Breakoff unit at White Pass to Basalt of Summit Creek, which is also ugly and netted up, by the way. But Jeff Tepper in the live chat right now says, yes, look at B. Look at the plot on B. And I think what Jeff is saying right now is we don't have a massive valley for Tatinum and Niobium. And because we don't have that big dearth of those two elements, those rare earth elements, those trace elements, then that's a vote for Breakoff. Science is not always tidy. No TAMB depletion. All right. Spidergrams. You kind of know how to read them, and maybe in a weird way, through that fumbling, you were coached up a little bit on which spidergrams are going to be the most convincing to be non-arc and which are kind of gray. So sometimes the fumbling is instructive as well. At least that's what I'm telling myself right now. Okay, let's go back to another geochem. So I think that's it for spidergrams. Hopefully that worked for you. I'm not sure it worked for me, but hopefully it worked for you. AFM triangles. Is this as important, or do you like the spidergrams? Are the spidergrams more useful and more powerful than these AFM plots?
Spidergrams are a little more powerful because spidergrams says arc or not arc.
Yeah.
This one's is not as definitive because if it's in the bottom, so we can talk about how to plot this in a minute if you want, but if a sample, each point on that triangle is a different sample.
Okay.
And if the sample plots in the lower half there, which is labeled calc-alkaline, then it's an arc rock.
Okay.
If it plots in the upper part, it could be an arc rock, but it doesn't have to be.
Oh, I kind of like this then. I made a good call there. Huh?
You're right on.
Okay. So the triangle is a confirmation that you have an arc magma, but it's not necessarily a confirmation you have Breakoff.
Correct.
Well, we had more than 900 viewers. Now we're below that because we're talking about geochemistry right now. People are like, click, I got to go clean the garage. I can't handle this. Some of us can, though. And this is the last version, but I think before we go to these isotope tables, which is our last of the geochem approaches, I'm reminding you why we're doing this. We're trying to decide, it's important to us to decide which lavas in the Cascades we're going to remove from the subduction signature rocks and put into this older Breakoff story. And there's more in the letter that I want to read right now before we go to these isotopes. I'm just going to do it with Docky. But Jeff took the time. I've already read this one to you, but I want to read each of these now that we know about the spidergrams and the triangles. The Teanaway, I'll save the Teanaway for next time because that's the next episode. Basaltifrost Mountain, which may or may not be part of the Teanaway now that I make the regional correlation. Jeff's giving us a little historical background here. So, Roland Tabor knew about the Basaltifrost Mountain. He probably named it. And he had an approximate age for like 9 million years, like that kind of error. And Jeff's igneous petrology class project in 2016, following Sean Tanner's project in 2015, and subsequent Jack Randall thesis in 2017, they looked at that Basaltifrost Mountain. They found that it was bimodal. You know what that means now. Tholeiitic. I guess that means it falls in the upper part of that triangle. Is that what it means? Yeah. Okay. Iron rich, I guess. But with titanium and niobium depletions. So as often the case with the data, they're not 100% clear with regard to tectonic setting. Oh, I'm sorry. I skipped. I'm sorry. Basaltifrost Mountain. Tholeiitic, lack that, not arc, presumably coming from the asthenosphere by way of the slab gap. We've already talked about that. Felsic tuffs, in other words, rhyolitic explosive tuffs, have traits of crustal melts, high strontium isotope ratios, for example. We're about to talk about that. Randall's poster, figure 8, is one of the best examples, along with the Summit Creek and Natchez, that are clearly different from the arc. Okay, well, speaking of that, let's get to that. So this last approach, and here's Docky. So this is the chart that Jeff, amazingly, was in my ear, like I was on some game show, and he's like in my ear coaching me up on how to draw this thing. And we drew it together from scratch, and it turned out pretty well, I think. And we're plotting strontium ratios against neodymium, and I'll let him explain what the payoff is for plotting these rock samples on this line. This is fun, Jeff.
I love this. So there are some figures like this on posters. I don't know if practical to share them in a live stream, but anybody who goes to look at some of the student posters will see these isotope diagrams and the contrast between the very narrow range of compositions that we see in the Cascade arc, compared to the really broad range we see in the Breakoff belt is striking.
That was beautifully done. Very, very good. Anything to add there?
No, I think all I would maybe add is that in order to be at the lower right-hand end, way down there where that has to be not just continental crust, but old continental crust.
Okay.
Because this ratio increases with time.
Mm-hmm.
So that tells us that some of the Breakoff belt magmas were derived by melting of some crust that had old stuff in it. And that old stuff could be coming from Idaho. It could be, the early SWAC stuff that's coming from, the continental interior.
Right.
But it couldn't be coming from Silesia or some, Silesia-derived sediment because that's young.
Got it.
And it's not continental.
How do I spell? Okay. Get your questions ready. We're about done. We're deep in the weeds. But Jeff took the time after that conversation yesterday to send a separate email to say, I know we just drew that isotope plot together, but let me grab one of the best and the most well-behaved plots from one of the student posters, and let me make sure that you can see that. And so I'm going to show you the plot from one of his students, and I'm going to read you the notes that Jeff put along with that email. And then we'll wrap things up for today, and I will be leaning on Jeff to help with some of the answers for some of your questions. It invariably will involve geochemistry, but let's finish it up with this. So, email yesterday afternoon. This strontium neodymium isotope diagram from the Wallenbrock poster nicely illustrates the contrast between Breakoff belt samples versus Cascade arc samples. Epsilon neodymium is just a shorthand way for expressing the ratio of neodymium 143 to neodymium 144. The I on both axes is for initial, meaning this was the ratio at the time the sample formed. Both of these ratios will slowly increase over time because of the radioactive decay, so we like to correct for that. The small open symbols, so open symbols for Rainier and Mount Adams and Mount St. Helens, you can see them all here. The small open symbols from Cascade stratovolcanoes, Rainier, St. Helens, and Adams, span only a restricted range of isotope ratios, indicating there was little or no involvement of old continental crust or sediment, in generation of those lavas. Those samples all plot in the mantle part of the diagram. So the mantle part of the diagram, which is a strong vote for Cascade arc subduction signature less than 46 million years old. Conversely, note how the Breakoff belt samples, so here they are, Natchez, Tana, Mount Catherine, Teanaway, Pilchuck, Bald Mountain, Frost Mountain, Summit Creek. These are our Breakoff friends, right? Each with their own colored symbol. Notice how the Breakoff belt samples define a broad spread from mantle-like ratios. Those are mainly from mafic samples, to crust-like ratios. These are mainly from rhyolites and tuffs. Mount Catherine is part of the Natchez Formation. Mount Catherine is here. These isotope data indicate significant involvement of crust, and probably mid to upper crust in most cases, that was melted by heat of basalt that intruded to mid or even upper crustal levels during the Breakoff event. So if we go back to the sketch, this is how we're finishing. We go back to the sketch and we zoom in real tight. The mantle wedge is down here, but the Breakoff magmas that we're talking about here, all of these guys, are generated, as I understand it, these are generated by decompression melting. So hot, solid mantle, the stenosphere is surging through the break, is triggering melting within the crust, and we're getting all these different bimodal signatures kicked off by injecting this hot mantle, triggering the melting, and we end up with the bimodal signature. As opposed to down here, where a bunch of petrology tells us that this is, Jeff, is this right? So it can be BADR, basalt, andesite, dacite, rhyolite. For the arc, but up here it's either B or R. The full suite of lavas are common with a volcanic arc signature. the end members only are common in the breakoff. Thank you, students. Class dismissed. Please watch your step on the way out of the auditorium. And we'll see you on Thursday, the day after Christmas, at noon Pacific, for our next episode entitled Teanaway Lavas, a Case Study, Bimodal Volcanism in Central Washington. But of course we're not done. It's time for some live question and answer from you. Please use your uppercase. I will try to answer some. Jeff will try to answer some others. And we'll do this for 10 or 15 minutes and then say goodbye to each other. I really appreciate you being with us today. Guy, how likely is it a few magmas overlapped enough in time to form mixed flows? Isn't that kind of what those dark inclusions in the light granite were a few months ago? Okay, thank you. I'll take a portion of that, Guy. I did want to use, with our discrimination between arc and breakoff, I wanted to use hornblends in the hornblends in the rock, and I wanted to use mafic enclaves, because in the field, Jeff was, maybe I pushed him this way, but Jeff eventually gave the message that if you have a bunch of beautiful andesites in your igneous rock, that's a signature of subduction. And if you have mafic enclaves in your pluton, or even in your lavas, that's a vote for subduction signature. Jeff wanted to back off of that for today's episode. I kind of forget why. But we will be revisiting the mafic enclaves a little bit. So that's not much of an answer, but you got me. Dan says, where in the world are other breakoff belt rocks? I can guess, Dan, that nobody has thought to use the approach. Okay, two answers. It feels like this is cutting-edge geology by Jeff Tepper and his students, and so the instrumentation and the uranium-lead dating is maybe not a common approach by geologists around the world. I don't know, but that's my hunch. And number two, to get a breakoff, you need a major oceanic plateau to accrete, I think. And so how often do you have that? Is, I guess, a question spawned by your question is there a breakoff belt inland of the Yakutat suture? Is there a breakoff belt in the Alaska range? And if there is, are those lavas already mapped and just people don't recognize that there's a breakoff up there? Lottie the Roddy, can we distinguish chemically between breakoff and near trench magmas? Are they very similar? That's a question I have too, Lottie. And you know that we're deep into our Tepper trilogy, those 3 chapters that I was sharing with you. And somehow we need to tease out the near trench magmas. I'm sure Jeff has a better answer there, but I do want to get into those near trench magmas because especially Mike Eddy he's deeply in love with near trench magmas. And I need to learn a little bit more about why those are a separate story. Although I think I kind of know the answer. It's the geographic position of those things in the forearc. Chris, is bimodal volcanism evidence of subducting a spreading ridge, a slab breakoff, slab rollback, or all of these, depending on where we were looking? And we need the geochem to fully interpret. Thank you for the question, Chris. Maybe on Thursday I will try to, or maybe it's a couple letters beyond. I'm going to try to figure out how I think Jeff's evolution in thought over the last 20 years might be a helpful way to do this. And I don't think I'm misrepresenting Tepper right now. I think Jeff Tepper 15 years ago was thinking slab window. It was not thinking breakoff belt at all, and was solely thinking about a subducting spreading ridge and a slab gap and a slab window, whatever you want to call it. And he's on a new paper that's mostly talking about subduction of a spreading ridge. But how to tease out that ridge story that's subducting and have it work with or against a breakout story, I'm still a little fuzzy on how to do that, teaching-wise and also academically. Thanks for the question. Ron, you have hit upon one of my biggest questions about volcanism. Why is non-subductive continental volcanism typically bimodal? Why no andesite or dacite? I don't have an answer for that. I'm sure there's a geochemistry answer that maybe we can toss into Teanaway, because Teanaway, next episode, the Teanaway formation is classically bimodal. I say that simply because it's the closest unit to my house that I know has mostly basalt, but it has a significantly older rhyolite story, and there's nothing in between. And so maybe I can learn from Mike Eddy and maybe Jeff Tepper another time. I don't know. It's a good question. I don't know how to answer it. Pat Miller, can water-induced melting and pressure-reduced melting occur at the same time in the same unit? Some of these I'm just going to ask out loud because I don't know how to answer them. Baba Yoshi, at some point, are we going to go into depth of how bimodal volcanics works? Okay, so a few of you want to do that. I'm down to live. David, Robert Hildebrand sees Breakoff magma granites all over the place. Why are not more of those in Silesia Breakoff magmas? Thank you, David. Okay, I hadn't thought about Hildebrand. Hildebrand loves slab failure, which I think are two massive pieces of continental crust. I don't know if that's right or not. Okay, interesting. It seems hardly anybody loves Hildebrand's slab failure idea to explain massive batholiths, massive plutons. And I guess you're helping me see that maybe Hildebrand's slab failure is a breakoff story on a much larger scale? Like instead of a narrow band of breakout magmas like we're talking about today, Hildebrand's just jacking everything up scale-wise to say the entire Sierra Nevada batholith is a breakoff belt. Although he's calling it slab failure instead of breakoff. Something about Hildebrand's geochemistry plots seem to rub everybody the wrong way. And I don't know if that's Bob rubbing people the wrong way or if it's his plots or what, but I love Hildebrand's work. I can never tell if it's genius or just lunatic. Jeff Parker, are chalice magmas usually bimodal? Thank you. That's where we're going, Jeff. It's going to be frustrating to put a few of these questions off, but the next part of the Tepper trilogy around New Year's is getting to slab rollback, and classically those are the chalice magmas. And I don't think they are bimodal. Maybe they are. I kind of forget. A few more and we'll quit. It's 9:30. Oh, yeah, Sharon and Malaga, can Jeff do another extra video with you answering some of the questions in this chat? I think that's up to you, Jeff. I've been abusing you with time right now. But Jeff, if you want to do another recorded Zoom thing to address a bunch of this, I'd be happy to do that, but I don't want to put more pressure on you. Speaking of which, I just got an email from Jamie McDonald. Let's open it together. I've never done this before. You remember Jamie from earlier in the alphabet? Nick, I'm traveling today. We'll miss your live broadcast. I was watching your recorded video with Jeff Tepper, and I thought about Eocene volcanic correlations, or rather the Breakoff volcanic correlations. Tabor and others, Figure 7, preferred correlations between Monash, Tash, and Wenatchee blocks is a good place to look. Mike Eddy's age paper that you posted has a similar correlation. I think this could help the viewers. I enjoyed you and Jeff talking about geochemistry. I will be teaching students the very same concepts this spring. One will be working out the Teanaway Formation volcanic rocks. Okay, Jeff. All right. Okay, Jamie. Thank you. That was fun. Thank you, Jamie, for watching these. 3 more and we're done. I'm coming down to live. Way off topic with a few of you here. Eric is wondering, wouldn't a slab break off and slab failure be the same thing, or am I missing something? It might be the same thing. Pam, when subducting a spreading plate, isn't there a greater possibility for slab failure than typical plate subduction? When subducting a spreading plate, do you mean a spreading ridge, Pam? A greater possibility for slab failure. That's how we'll quit. Let's go back to the first slide I showed you today. Oh no, here's a sneak peek to next time. So here is Mike. If I can, it's Christmas week, and I think he's under the weather besides, and he's got a young family and everything else. But if I can somehow get Mike for 30 minutes, I want to get some tips from him on his attempts, and Jamie just pointed this out as well, his attempts to realize that maybe we don't need all these different colors. Maybe some of this stuff is exactly the same stuff. Here's the Natchez Formation basalts, the Natchez Formation sedimentary rocks. That's new to me. I never noticed that before. Here's Snoqualmie Pass, by the way. This is Interstate 90. Here's where I was standing right at this star to film that Silver Pass Volcanics and Teanaway basalt field video from last month. Ellensburg is down in here, down in the hole. But this is where we're headed, a case study to talk about, it looks like super complicated stuff, and it is, but maybe there's a regional story in here. And that's one last thing I'll say. I forget what it's about. Oh, yeah. There was a University of Washington professor named Eric Cheney. And Sky Cooley, who you remember from last winter, left a comment and said, I wonder if it's worth looking at Eric Cheney's work. And Eric Cheney, 20 years ago, was taking all these sedimentary packages, and lavas as well, and broadly correlating them across the Cascades. Like taking stuff in eastern Washington from this time and saying all that stuff is the same, all the way to the ocean. In other words, he was a lumper, not a splitter. I'm a lumper by heart. And lumpers, do you know what I mean by lumper and splitter? If you're a splitter, you're like, oh yeah, well I don't know what kind of animal we got here, but this is totally different than anything else in the area. We're going to call this a new name, and we're going to have a new color on our map, and we're going to split out a unit for this. And then it's like, well, there's some basalts up here too, but no, that's different yet. Different place, obviously. So this is going to be a different color and a different name too than this. And it's different than this. And it's different than this. And before you know it, you got 75 colors and 75 names. Those are the splitters. And I have to say it, partly the splitters just want to etch their name in the wilderness and say, I was here. And I studied this mountain, and I'm going to name this after my dog or something. And it's all ego-driven. That's unfair, but I appreciate and actually am excited by somebody like Eric Cheney, who said, yeah, I looked carefully at those 7 postage stamps. It's all the same stuff. I'm going to make it all one unit bounded by unconformities above and below. And of course, he put new names on those packages. The Wallop, nobody can remember the names of those things, I don't think. So that's ultimately what we're going to be up to on Thursday to explore lumping a bunch of units that have been split out and see if there's anything pleasing that comes out of it, especially with this new data that we have from Mike Eddy and Jeff Tepper. I was going to do something to finish there. What was it? To go back to the first slide? Why was I going to do that? The spreading ridge. Please believe me that we will bring in the spreading ridge and think a lot about it soon. Maybe next time, but probably 2 letters from now. And please believe me when I say that we will also address clockwise rotation. Because you recall that one of the points we made not that long ago is that the majority of Siletzia was accreted south of Washington, and then that crust has been moved up into Washington, if you kind of know what I mean. So there's paleogeographic context as well. A toast to you. Here's to you for joining us today, and here's to your health on the winter solstice. Winter solstice. Starting to rain. Here's to everyone in your family, and hopefully you will see some of your family members this week. Unless you don't like them, but hopefully you like your family members and you're looking forward to seeing them this week. Christmas week. Here's to them. Here's to Jeff Tepper, who has been a featured portion of this section in the alphabet, and much of today's content would not be possible without the active collaboration with a really wonderful person and excellent geologist. Here's to you, Jeff. Thank you. And my last comment is, back to Liz just briefly, I say she keeps improving, and that's true, and her short-term memory is the last thing that we're working on, and even that is getting much better. Here's an example. I did this last Saturday morning with you. I walked home, crunching through the snow. I got into the house at 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning. She said, "Where were you this morning?" I said, "Well, I was doing a live stream from my office, dear." She's like, "Oh, you're doing those again?" And we had just talked about that the night before, that I was back to doing these episodes because Sam is home. And on Thursday, 2 days ago, I did a live stream with you, and I came into the house, and Liz said, "How'd the live stream go?" So, recovery. It's getting better every day. Thank you all. I love you. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. And we will see you next. For episode H on Thursday, December 26th, 2024 at noon Pacific. The Teanaway Formation, featuring the work of Mike Eddy and probably more about Jeff Tepper. Thanks. Enjoy your family, enjoy your time off. If you have a break from your work and your school and other obligations, it's a special time of the year. Best wishes to you. Gotta run. Gotta head home. Thank you. I love you and goodbye. From Ellensburg, Washington, USA, home of Central Washington University. Goodbye.